Hey guys, Dave Bernier here talking about agentic design patterns. We're now at pattern number 5 in Antonio Gulli's book Agentic Design Patterns, and this pattern is tool use. Nowadays, if you talk about agents, of course, or obviously, you are going to talk about tools. What are tools? What's the goal behind it? In a nutshell, it's kind of opening the world to an LLM. So because an LLM by itself just have access to the data that it has been trained on. So when you connect tools to an LLM, it can interact with different things. These things can be database, APIs, write code to the file system, many different ways that you can connect an LLM to an external system. Often it is used through function calling. So once you prompt the LLM, you tell it that it can use different kind of tools, and then it requires access, or actually it comes back into the code and actually use the tools with the configuration that you tell it that the tool has. The pros and cons of the tools. Like I said in the description, the biggest pros are that it can interact with other systems, interact with your specific data. It doesn't have to rely on global knowledge to give you back some information that you ask it. It can access your company data if you want to the LLM or the agent to have access to your company's knowledge to answer better. And like I said, it's not solely relying on the LLM's training data. The cons are the point that you have to pay attention. You open risk to important data if you give access to your database. So watch out in giving writing access to anything to an artificial intelligence, because, well, you still don't know what it can do. You don't know if it has kind of a brain fart and starts deleting some stuff that it shouldn't, or overwriting stuff that it shouldn't. So you have to be very prescriptive to which data and which access you give the LLM. The more tools you add more complexity in the orchestration. So if it calls some different APIs, some different tools, you have to have a good architecture and a good way to monitor and make sure that it functions properly. Then you have to describe each tools properly. If you don't, the LLM might not use it as intended. It's going to try to use it, call it multiple times, and it's going to add even more latency because of these trial and errors, and you might actually not even have the results that you want. So the tool description is a kind of prompt engineering by itself, in the way that you have to describe it properly so the LLM can understand what it can do with it, and in which case it should use it or use something else. So here in the flow, this is quite straightforward. In an 8N, you use the AI agent and you plug in many different kind of tools. Here, I've put many tools here, but in the demo, I'm only using the code tool. What it does, it's going to search into a hard-coded book database, quote unquote. But it can be, like written here, it could be a call with an HTTP request to either call an API, call a website, or trigger an action into another system. You could plug it to your CRM to create an account in your CRM, to read the database, if you want to give access to writing or updating accounts in your CRM, you could do that too. You could call another agent or another workflow or some specific code on your system, or even give access to the database. These are only examples. There are an infinite use case that you can plugged into LLM, because at the end of the day, it's a function call. So if the function does a curl or a fetch request or whatever, or write to the file system, you can do whatever you can do with code. The LLM can have access. You can give the LLM access to it, and you can do it with it. So here, like I said, in the demo here, we're actually asking the LLM to search how many copies of the book The Great Gatsby are in the database. So quite very simple, very straightforward. But here we see that it gave the answer that there are 10 copies of the book The Great Gatsby in the database. And we see that it did call the code tool to be able to fetch it. Here, the code tool, like I said, there is a very short description that it says that you can search in the database of books using a textual query, and the definition of the arguments and the definition of what it actually returns. You can get very, very descriptive here in what are the parameters of every single tool, so that way the LLM can understand what it does. Here, again, pay attention because it can add latency. I didn't add it to, but it can exploit the context here because every tool, well, you have to send it to the LLM, so the number of tokens are going to be consumed depending on the quantity of data that the LLM needs to ingest back from the tools to be able to understand what it does. So that's it. Quite a straightforward design pattern. If you want to have access to an example in LangChain, I'm building a repository with every single design pattern, or you can go and get the book by Antonio Gulli. The examples there are pretty good. They all work, but they might not be up to date the more the frameworks and the tools get updated. Anyway, that's it for me. Bye.